Then you get a mid-credit scene, which...
Look, remember all those Woody Harrelson announcements?
I don't even know much about Carnage, but I thought it was so corny.
It was not Carnage.
It was so corny. Woody Harrelson, anytime in any kind of wig, is distracting. In like generally speaking of any
It was very
thing.
forced for sure. Yeah.
Like, I think True Detective is an amazing first season, and
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson is great.
Yeah.
But anytime he has hair, I'm like, that's clearly a wig. You know, it's so not Woody Harrelson. Hi, Reject Nation. I'm Greg Alba.
I'm John Humphrey.
I'm Kyle EILERMAN.
Kyle EILERMAN from the FANTHEORY YouTube channel has just watched the awesomest movie ever, Venom.
Venom.
Before we go into this review, I wanted to tell you guys thank you for following us on the Stardust app. Over there, we post reactions, 30-second ones, for any TV show, film, or trailer. As a matter of fact, take a look at our Venom one.
Guys, what'd you all think of Venom?
The Passion of Christ was a love story.
Why would they do this? Why?
This shit's an
Why?
abortion
Why would
over
they do
peace.
this to us?
This shit is like death. Your battery's gonna die. Your battery's gonna die in this movie. Is asshole. This shit is a sin. Okay? It is like watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 with a blindfold.
I can't
Fuck
believe
this
you did
movie.
this.
Fuck your Ruben.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Let's hop into this review, shall we? Okay, so this is going to be a spoiler talk, and the way we want to handle our spoiler talk is if you just walked out of the film with us, and so we're not going to do some, like, ultimate breakdown of the movie. We're just going to talk about it, all right? We don't really even have notes prepared or whatever. We're just going to speak what comes to mind. There's a couple of things that, of course, we have to touch on because those are the of course moments you got to talk about, right? Let's go right into this. Well, I'll just give our general thoughts. This movie gave me 100,000% what I expected it to be. I had been saying for a couple of videos now that at most this movie is going to be entertainingly cheesy. I did not think this was necessarily a good movie. I would say though that I was definitely not bored and I was very entertained throughout, and that overall I actually like the film. Like, that's the funny part about it. I don't think it's a terrible movie, but I like it. And honestly, all the credit in the world goes to Tom Hardy. You could have a cool action scene here or there, but that would not save this movie. What saves this movie entirely from falling apart and just being a terrible film is the performance of Thomas the Hardy. John, you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up really well. I feel like this is a misshapen, strange movie, but there are better made bad superhero movies that I've enjoyed a lot less than this one. And yeah, if there's anything to say to this movie's credit, if you get one thing right, it had better be the most important thing. And this movie does, for the most part, get Tom Hardy and his relationship with Venom right. And those things keep this movie alive and fun when it could have been a total disaster.
Kyle is a huge Spider-Man fan who is very much not looking forward to the Venom movie. So Kyle.
I was actually planning on not seeing it at all. I was like, it's not Marvel's Spider-Man, it's Sony's Venom. Was actually pleasantly surprised. I went in with really low expectations, so it was better than I expected. It definitely, like you said, was entertaining. So if you're looking for a movie that's entertaining, it definitely fits the mold. If you're looking for accuracies or things that make sense, then you're not going to find that in this movie.
I could see a lot of people who really are committed to reading those comics hating this movie because it doesn't really have a sinister tone. Eddie Brock is very different from my understanding. He's very different because Eddie Brock in this film is a really nice guy. Like, he has his qualities.
Likable.
He has these qualities where Michelle Williams even says to him about, like, you know, giving a psychoanalysis of how terrible of a guy Eddie Brock is. And I'm like, that ain't present in this movie. He seems like a really nice guy. I think for this film, though, it actually works because you have the Eddie Brock personality and a very different Venom personality. And I'm also thinking with Topher Grace, which was the other recent live adaptation that we got of Venom, he was an angry, messed up Eddie Brock, and then you got Venom, which only amplifies that. I thought it was kind of cool to have the comparison between the personalities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if we're going to get on board with this guy, there's got to be something redeemable about him because we're already altering a character that's been a villain and has kind of, you know, transformed into a hero in his own comics. But yeah, like for a movie and an introduction to a lot of uninitiated people, I feel like that's necessary.
I will say, in terms of comic book comparison, he is much more accurate to Venom in this movie than he was in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Not at all.
But he has a long way to go to actually be.
Well,
Comic book accurate.
I mean, here's how I overall feel of how someone will enjoy this movie. Because I hear a lot of criticism towards it. When we got out of the theater, all those people you saw in the Stardust post were all, they didn't like the movie. The thing is, I couldn't argue with them. I'm like, you're right. The difference is, I enjoyed that. Yeah. Now, with that being said, if this was an MCU movie, I would have a very different opinion. That's the thing, is that this movie greatly weighs on what your expectations are walking into it.
And what you're willing to settle for coming out.
Yeah, what you're willing to settle for, what you're willing to forgive about this movie. The first act of this movie happens, right?
Very fast.
Very fast, very choppy. I remember thinking the editing was like weirdly off when in the second scene when they're having their date, when Anne and Eddie Brock are having dinner, the cutting was just like ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
It seemed like the first act was in a big hurry to get somewhere.
and not only was the cutting of that scene ridiculous, it had this terrible continuity with the takes they were using. I'm like, you're using so many different takes. I was not looking at Michelle Williams once in that scene. I just kept looking at Tom Hardy. And every time they made a cut, he was making a different facial expression from the last take.
Yeah,
and it was super distracting.
It's either they just had horrible chemistry, or we actually ran into Coy Jandreau after the movie. And one of the things he pointed out was he basically said, like, it's clear that the reshoots didn't match with what they shot originally, which hampers a lot of their chemistry. So whichever take on that you believe, there's a lot off with that stuff.
I mean, Kyle, what'd you think of their chemistry? Did you think they had any? Because I did not.
No, not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
There was hardly anything to build off of at all.
Their chemistry was just the fact that I like both of them.
Their chemistry was, we're in a relationship.
I really do think Tom Hardy saves this movie because I don't like anyone else in this movie. Well, I think Riz Ahmed is surprisingly boring. He had a weird thing where I didn't think you were lazy.
It's not a bad performance.
It's just a dull performance.
Once you get it, you got it.
Yeah, he was very monotoned, and at first they almost introduced him like he's like a nice person or something. And
He's
then-
like a more sinister version of Elon Musk, essentially. Like, that's how they pitch you him.
I didn't really see the full character or whatever homework he did for the role. I don't really see where he's a genius, and I don't really see how he's this charming guy who built his way to the top. I hated that Trump reference.
You are fake news.
Well, and every
What is-
single choice he makes in this movie, you're like, how did you get to where you are by being like, I don't care about any protocol or anything. Human testing, let's go.
And Michelle Williams was the most upsetting part because oftentimes with roles like this, you can at least walk away going, they didn't really get much written for them, but they did a good job. And here I was like, Michelle Williams' character actually had more to do than the average female comic book character. Not that it was like good written material, but it really seemed like she didn't care. It felt that way. I associate Michelle Williams as one of the best actresses we have today. And then watching her here, I'm like, damn, dude, I would think you're a terrible actress if this was your first movie I was watching.
This felt like her taking it easy. Like, there are moments where I was like, I'm sure, but for the most part, yeah.
Like when they wake up out of bed, when she's hitting him with a pillow, I'm like, God, where the fuck is the chemistry?
It looked like they got that scene for the first time, like, that morning.
Yeah, I'm like, are you guys auditioning right now? What's going on?
It's a screen test.
Yeah.
I thought the writing overall was not good, but that's why Tom Hardy was the best part of the movie, because he took what wasn't great and he made it not bad.
Because this film has that point where he does his annoying interview with Carlton Drake, and then it does this abrupt 6 months later thing, which I thought was very strange when it occurred. And then that's when the movie actually got interesting.
The movie kicks in.
Because I thought, oh man, this is gonna be rough. I thought it was gonna be rough to sit through. And then it got interesting because I like seeing Eddie Brock where he's really down on his life. It doesn't look like 6 months have passed, first of all. It looks like this is 2 days later. He has the same facial hair, the same hair.
Everything's the same except his apartment.
Yeah, everything about him is the exact same. But I like the nice guy Eddie when he interacts with that homeless girl and gives her $20 for a newspaper. That was a nice moment. And I even like the touch of when the guy who you see in the trailer with the turd in the wind moment, when he robs the Chinese lady and they have that back and forth beforehand of, how he doesn't meditate and everything.
Yeah.
Watching Eddie Brock trying to bounce back, I found myself surprisingly caring about I kind of want Eddie Brock to have a comeback here.
Oh, yeah.
I would like him to bounce back. And despite how I felt about Carlton Drake being a bland performance, I at least felt like, yeah, I want Eddie Brock to win. You know?
Yeah, once you get to the finale and stuff, you are like, yeah, get him, you know?
Yeah.
You do at least get to root against him, even if you're not very invested in him.
The ending, though, was really, like, over the top, like, with CG and stuff, to a point where you actually couldn't tell who was fighting who and where.
Yeah.
Surprisingly underwhelmed by that portion specifically, because that felt super undercooked to me.
Well, it wasn't well done. I just mean they put in crappy CG like crazy to a point where I had no idea what I was even watching anymore.
Yeah.
But even getting to that point, because once it became clear that it was the finale, I was like, oh, we're doing this now.
Oh,
I
the,
thought we had,
the
like, a
rocket
half hour
ship's
to
taking
go.
off. Huh?
Yeah.
I just learned about this.
Yeah, and so and it takes away a lot of the catharsis and a lot of the beat 'em up tension from that
Yeah.
scene, because it's like, oh, you both just became big Venom monsters, and now we're already fighting and we're already wrapping this shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of liked what they were building up with Riot more than when we actually got Riot.
Yeah.
Because there was this movie I saw forever ago. I think it's called Fallen with Denzel. The guy basically, he keeps transporting from body to body by touching them, and he could go in and out of any soul
yeah,
and take
I remember
over
this
them.
movie,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's what this reminded me of, when it's like with the Chinese cop, and then she takes over the old Chinese lady, then the little girl. And I kind of enjoyed that element.
Yeah, it was like Jason Goes to Hell.
Because I wasn't sure, like, oh, is this leading to Riot? I wasn't really trying to think ahead in that department. I like that little side storyline, so it was kind of a letdown. Because when Riot first shows up, when you first see Riot,
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that's actually pretty scary looking.
Yeah.
And then he kind of just becomes whatever, like,
He's just another
moments
big
later.
guy.
Yeah. He's just like a louder, scarier Venom, I guess, you know? Because Act 2 is easily the best part of this whole movie. And Act 2 is like the most of the film. I mean, there's some funky stuff, but I was really enjoying it, even though I was questioning. So that's what I mean. This movie really depends on you willing to forgive a lot.
Act 2 is where it feels the most like an actual movie, because the first act is like super rushed, and then the third act is like a sliver, and then the second act is where most all of the great stuff happens.
Yeah. Was when Eddie Brock gets his powers. Like, that was super predictable when it's the homeless lady. She's been kidnapped and she's being a test subject. Then when she, like, latches on him, I'm like, oh, some of that Reuben Fleischer horror stuff. I like origins tales of when powers are bestowed upon someone without them realizing. I like that kind of element. The part that was super missing in all that coolness, you can't help but compare this movie to Upgrade if you've seen the movie Upgrade. Not just because those two dudes look alike, but it starts to play out very similar.
Very similar.
When Eddie Brock, like, first he jumps off a wall and pushes a guy down. I'm like, all right, I can see how he thought that was just some, like, instinctual teenager thing he had going on. Sure.
Adrenaline.
Yeah. And then he, like, kicks open a whole fucking door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no reaction?
Right.
and then he jumps over a fence.
Didn't
I'm
he
like,
jump through a fence, actually?
Yeah, he jumps through the fence. And I'm like, no, like, what's going on?
Not even a little?
Not even a little sliver. I'm like, I'm sure there's a thing you shot, right? You could throw that in there. And then he knocks over the tree, the big log. But even then, he's just like, what the hell? All right. And then just moves forward from there. Honestly, I gotta give the movie credit, because there was a couple of really good moments that was awesome. Mm-hmm. I love the moment when Eddie Brock comes home, he's drinking the beers, and he starts eating from the trash. And then he's in the mirror. Because you see that moment in the trailer, and you think it's going to be like some super suspenseful shit. And he's in the mirror, and then the eyes come out. Yeah. And then he backs out and knocks out right away. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Or there's another scene where he goes and he finds Michelle Williams and her new boyfriend at a restaurant. And he's like looking super feverish, and like freaking out. And eventually, just to cool down, he hops in the lobster
That was
tank,
my favorite scene.
gnawing on an actual live lobster.
And that was just good acting. It like when we say Tom Hardy elevates this, I don't mean it by he's so charming, he elevates it.
He's committed.
There's some real emotional shit where he's like confused and chaotic and panicky in that restaurant, and he's like rude to everyone around him, and he's like hitting people and stuff. That was hilarious. Even before that, though, what'd you guys think of the scene when he meets the boyfriend of Anne?
That was really well done. Yeah.
I liked everything they did with the boyfriend, weirdly enough. It reminded me of Superman Returns, the way you don't hate James Marsden.
Right.
It's kind of the similar thing. I like when they do that, when it's like, oh, the girl's moved on, but we can't hate this guy, and he also kind of becomes a part of the plot. Like, I even
Yeah.
like the way that unfolded, where he's trying to help him, he's trying to get him tested and figure out the medical side of this, you know? But yeah, when they show up in the Uber...
And then he's like, I'm a big fan of your work. Really? He's like, well, yeah, all the people who's taking it. Like, he seems like genuine. That, like, yeah, Eddie Brock's kind of a cool guy.
This is good work, you know?
And the one good line Michelle Williams had is in that moment when she says, I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
That was a genuinely funny moment. What'd you think of the moment, Kyle, when all the bad guys broke in?
Into his apartment?
Yeah.
I thought it was fun, but I also didn't...
Not see that in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing with this movie, is it showed so much of what we've already seen.
Yeah,
Fair.
I mean, there's very little that isn't of a scene or a moment that you've already seen in the trailer. Like, you could basically expand on all the ideas the trailer gives you and figure out how this movie's gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, I still think, though, with the overall context, it was fun. Like, in the trailer, when he hits everyone and then it cuts to the line of,
Why would we do that?
in the film,
It's
he
like,
said,
let's eat their heads.
Yeah. And then he goes,
Why would we do that?
then it was funny.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas in the trailer, it was,
Why would we
what?
do that?
Yeah. But in the trailer in question, I'm like going, well, of course you do that. They're trying to take you, dude.
Why would we do that?
But in the context, I like that the trailer left out the details that Venom is talking to him at that moment. He's not just like taking over his body. Venom's actually verbally in his head.
Well, and I gotta say, I know I wasn't big on the ending, the finale fight, but a lot of the fights in this movie I thought were pretty impressive too, because that second unit direction is so visceral, and there's a lot of really punchy camera angles. You can see most of what's happening.
Actually, my favorite scene, I really like when he was running through the woods. I thought that was a really cool scene.
Super
to see
intense,
them.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just...
It's like really kinetic, but not so much that you can't tell what's happening. You know?
And the movie overall has so much good action, like it really does. Some of the moves and stuff are really freaking cool to watch.
The car chase scene.
Yeah, that was so cool.
And even, I mean, just the back and forth between Tom Hardy and Venom, you know,
Yeah.
their weird buddy dynamic over
There's
time.
some weird lines for sure, but I guess there are a few decent ones as well.
Venom does kind of a character shift halfway through this
Oh,
movie.
yeah. I mean, there's so much enough rewarding moments, and like I said, this movie hinges on so much forgiveness, because the second trailer is when you get the Venom reveal, the official reveal. And then funny enough, the official reveal is like that in the movie. That's the scene.
Venom in some ways felt like a genie to me. Like, what do you want? I'll grant it for you. Like,
Yeah, what was missing for me in the Venom and Eddie Brock department was, like, weirdly, I saw why Riot and Carlton Drake worked well. With the genius of Carlton Drake and the money and everything he can provide, then you got the power and the invincibility of Riot made sense. Whereas, as much as I adored the chemistry between Eddie Brock and Venom, I was kind of like, other than the fact that you keep telling me they're host compatible, what does Eddie Brock really bring here for Venom? I don't understand where that's really coming into play. Like, they break into the office, they leave the phone. That's about it, right?
You're left going, what kind of match are they other than happenstance?
Other than they're a good buddy cop duo. you know?
It just so happens that your body's the right kind.
Yeah, but I'm like, well, why? What exactly is there to you guys? But no, I like a lot of the really heart-to-heart. Even in the scenes with Michelle Williams where I felt she was very flat, there were moments where Tom Hardy's performance elevated that. After she learns he's Venom, or learns what Venom is and all that, and they're in the car right back, and Venom's saying, like, you should apologize for all those things. Like, there's something about those moments that I thought were really touching.
there was one trailer that they put out right before this movie came out, and it was all just completely focused on Tom Hardy the entire time. They're just like, Tom Hardy's incredible in this movie. I really love my performance that I got to work with Tom Hardy, because he's the best part. They just kept milking the fact, because that's actually accurate.
This whole thing on
like, it's 100% accurate.
Man, he showed up for his executive producer credit.
Okay, and then, like, towards the end of Act 2, before we get into the finale, some weird shit starts going on. She-Venom shows up.
For a hot second,
And then starts making out with Eddie Brock, and what was weird to me about that was, did Eddie know that was Anne? Because he kind of was just like, fuck it, I'm into it. It's been 6 months, man. I want to hook up with something.
Given his position.
Like, why is he just making out with her? The She-Venom moment kind of seems silly, as opposed to something that probably should have felt like a cool nod to something.
There's actually 2 She-Venoms.
Okay, well, it felt like it was supposed to be like a cool nod to something like that, but instead it kind of felt, just silly.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this movie.
Yeah. And that's when the Venom shift was occurring. It was around that scene. Out of nowhere, Venom went from your planet is doomed to I decided I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, he changed his mind because he likes.
You changed me, Eddie.
Right.
Hey, once they share a little kiss together,
Yeah.
you know, Venom's heart, his old heart melt. They say Venom's heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Well, it's like the Venom shift is more than just some random arc Venom had. The whole identity of Venom starts to be totally shifted because he has this line in there where he's talking about who Riot is, and then he says this thing about on my planet I'm kind of a loser like you.
That was so bad.
It's like a funny line, but
awesome.
it completely alters everything you think of Venom at that point.
Yeah.
I'm a loser on my planet too.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of those elements of this movie that pushes hard on the boundary of silliness, but that actually very much endeared me to the movie. Like, I can see people hating that stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought that was very, very fun.
Like you said, rush finale, because I know where they're launching a rocket, and I was like, oh shit, we're like towards the end of the movie now. It was that weird thing of, do I really want more of this movie? This also feels abrupt.
This movie's like a New York deli sandwich where Act 1 and 3 are like thin pieces of bread,
Yes.
and Act 2 is like a stack of meat.
Yeah. This movie gets forgiven a lot for like conveniency, you know, like how Anne knows how to work an MRI machine apparently. What the shit? Where'd that go from? Or when the rocket is blasting off and then she turns on the thing, like, oh wow, her first time with these controls, and she knows how to do that to have the vibration go off. My girlfriend pointed out, why didn't she just like have the thing to deactivate the rocket if she knows how to work that thing?
Well,
You
the
know?
other thing too is I was like, Carlton Drake / Riot like slaughters the entire crew, and I'm like, don't you need some people to help you launch this rocket?
Yeah.
Is there a reason you have a bunch of people in this very room?
I'm sure the comic book fans out there can explain to me further on how certain things work and how certain things don't. When the airplane is passing by,
On top of the tower, yeah.
then how the fuck can they be around a rocket ship? Like that confused me. As like, wait a minute, I don't understand what's going on. Whatever.
Because now we're focusing more on fire than
Yeah,
on sounds.
I'm like, this seems like a crazier thing than a plane.
Such a good point.
I gotta be loud as shit.
Yeah. It never seemed weird when Venom was talking to Eddie, but it seemed weird when Eddie was talking to Venom. Like, in terms of
From
when,
in his head.
yeah, when
Yeah.
Venom was informed and then Eddie was talking. Like, that seems strange to me. The moment that also confused me, but I thought was a neat effect at the time, but then it confused me later. Eddie looks into the car and he sees the reflection, and then he sees Venom. Wait a minute, though. You don't control his mind. Are you altering what he's seeing? Like,
Or is there some kind of like weird overlap between your minds where you see some of what Venom's thinking?
Is that very
or-
selective? I'm
Yeah.
kind of confused.
I mean,
the rules don't make sense.
They
to me.
actually do that in the comic books a little bit, and I think it's more of an artistic thing than anything. That part didn't bother me, but what did bother me was that
This
they
is a
really
very artistic movie.
they very much seemed like completely separate entities instead of slightly merged together. They were always attached to each other for the most part. Eddie never really became part of Venom.
No.
He's a roommate.
Yeah,
Eddie's
But like, it makes for great comedy dynamics. But there's that moment that just plays as super cheesy after that crazy Venom Riot fight, where Riot was slightly built up to be this insane threat, but didn't play out that way.
You don't get to see that at all.
I'm like, I mean, other than the fact that I was kind of confused by what was going on in the fight, I was like, Venom seemed like he was handling the shit pretty well, actually. You know?
Yeah, because the thing is, like, the only thing you get to build up Riot's menace is just that one scene where he kills a bunch of regular people who have never seen this before, and
Yeah.
then fights Venom.
But Venom's even saying, like, he's a leader and we have a 0% chance of
we have
winning.
a 0%
Yeah,
But when the fight happens, I'm like, you seem like you're doing amazing, dude.
It's like a little better than you. You're
Yeah.
holding your own,
Like,
man.
kind of. He looks like he got a few more combos and weird maneuvers.
What I've realized is that Venom just needs a self-esteem boost because he's got a lot more potential than
Yeah.
he realizes.
No, Venom's kind of turned into like a comedic character in this movie.
Yeah.
The part that I thought was supposed to play out like a meaningful moment was when Riot stabs Eddie, and then he has the spike through his heart, and then Eddie has his hand out, then you see the symbiote crawl up Venom and then latch onto him, as if it's this like no.
There was nothing dramatic about it.
Venom will save him. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this just seems corny.
Yeah.
But it felt like that was supposed to be one of the few moments in the movie where you're fucking moved.
There
you
should have
know?
been like a pause or even a cut to another scene first or
Yeah.
something would have
There's just
built
no-
some kind of drama there. But
Yeah, there's no tonal nuance around it at all. It just feels like another moment in a stream of moments. Like the only part, like this movie has a weird shape because to me, it starts down here, then it goes on this big hump, and then it kind of middles out. Still, like the beginning and ending parts don't have a pace. They just have a fast kind of chop to them.
I don't know a lot about Riot, but I would say that it is a letdown regardless, because I thought the way they were building up Riot was cool. And then when you get Riot, I'm like, he's just kind of a whatever thing at this moment. You're supposed to believe that, I mean, obviously no one believes that Venom is dead. Like, he sacrificed himself to save Eddie.
which is ridiculous.
And I thought it was going to end on a note of, Venom might be gone now, but then you see like a symbiote at the end.
right.
So they have this moment where Michelle Williams and Tom Hardy are talking with each other.
You hear his voice.
Yeah, and I actually love that. Like, that was a moment where I was like, that's funny. Like, that was cool. Because I didn't see that coming. She says some comment about, like, I'm sorry about Venom, and he's just kind of trying to brush it off. And to me, I'm like, I don't really feel like it earned that moment for him to feel like he's missing Venom.
Yeah.
But then for to reveal Venom's actually in there, like, little does she know we'll get her. You know, like, that was, I thought that was a really cool moment. And then come to find out the next 5 minutes are all shown in the trailer.
Yeah, it's the turd in the wind.
Which is the Sony trademark. Show the ending.
I really liked that they divided that idea up into two different scenes where you get an intro and at first they play with your expectations, but then you get so far into the movie and you're like, oh, we haven't seen that scene yet.
I was honestly sold that moment in the trailer where we're only gonna hurt bad people. Like, I thought from watching the trailer that would occur in the fun and games part of Act 2. So by the time we got to the finale, I thought that scene was just cut out of the movie. I'm like, oh, they showed us a deleted scene in the trailer. Weirdly, that didn't bother me because the way it played in the movie I thought worked better than how I anticipated it would play originally. Where I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. Then it's kind of funny them figuring out how they're gonna, like, you can't just eat everyone's head. And by the way, you do see someone's head get bit off, which I thought was surprising because I thought, oh wow, I wasn't actually expecting to see that because of all this R-rated not happening stuff. And then the turd in the wind part happened. What was weird to me about that was how Eddie Brock handled the situation after he did that. In the trailer, I took it as he kills that guy, and then the trailer showed us a different moment when he's talking to her, and they just spliced it together to make it look like the same scene.
Yeah.
Then come to find out, oh, that's all in the same scene. This is kind of weird. This leaves a whole bunch of questions for that poor Chinese lady now on the counter. Like, you traumatized her. She has questions. What if someone comes looking for Eddie? You're just like, yeah, I got Parasite. That's funny, right?
How do you know she's gonna be cool about it?
This isn't the MCU. You probably scared the living shit out of her just now. You know, this is new for her.
Yeah, everyone was very nonchalant about most of the things that were happening in front of them.
Well, and what about, like, I didn't think about this during the movie, but, like, there are a few of those fights that are very out in the public. So, like, what about all the other people who just could have seen it?
The villain was so reckless in the movie overall, too. Like, I just couldn't get over how much they were just causing utter destruction and chaos throughout the city.
True.
And there was no ramifications or no concerns
Not even
whatsoever.
a cut to a TV screen about, like, who is this mystery figure?
Yeah, nothing like that. Then you get a mid-credit scene, which...
Remember all those Woody Harrelson announcements?
I don't even know much about Carnage, but I thought it was so corny.
It was not Carnage.
It was so corny. Woody Harrelson, anytime in any kind of wig, is distracting. In like, generally speaking of any
It was
goddamn
very
thing.
forced, for sure, yeah.
Like, I think True Detective is an amazing first season, and
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson is great.
Yeah.
But anytime he has hair, I'm like, that's clearly a wig. You know, it's so not Woody Harrelson.
But this wig especially, because it was vibrant orange
like-
almost. It
like-
wasn't even red, really. It was orange.
Already Michelle Williams had a pretty awful wig. But I could readjust. And then here I'm like, there's no way I could get on board with that thing. And then all I'm going to see is Woody Harrelson too. And then when he said that line, that last line, there'll be a lot of carnage.
Oh, God,
Carnage.
that's...
Oh God, no sense of subtlety. Yeah.
There were so many things in this movie that I didn't even care to roll my eyes at, but that, like, I'll even allow you little cheeky things like that, but that was so on the nose that, I had to eye roll.
I mean,
hard.
Kyle, as a fan of the comics, what did you think of the Carnage moment?
It was literally not Carnage at all.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been less like Carnage. It was like they painted a Halloween version of him from a kid's outfit and were like, you're Carnage now.
Yeah, so, like, I'm no great Carnage expert either, but the second he showed up, I was like, this is not what I know of this character. This is not what I've seen in any of the Venom comics.
We talked about this
through.
after the theater, and honestly, like, the actor who plays the Joker in the Gotham series would have been great.
Cameron Monaghan,
Yeah.
Or the dude who almost played Pennywise, Will Poulter.
Would have been fantastic.
Or the dude who plays Pennywise.
Or the dude who plays
Bill
Pennywise.
Skarsgård, let's just typecast him forever.
Might as well.
Woody Harrelson didn't come off deranged. He came off as Woody Harrelson trying to act deranged.
The post-credit scene gives you the actual genuine "this is great."
Yes.
Which is essentially a giant movie clip.
It is.
Into the Spider-Verse.
It was a mini movie right there at the end.
It
After the credits.
It wasn't even a 1 minute scene. It was like, wow, we just got like almost 10 minutes of it in the Spider-Verse just now. Yeah.
It was a substantial chunk, and it was great.
And that was great.
It was amazing. It was like, wow, this looks amazing.
Best
I can't wait to watch this movie.
Yeah, best advertisement ever. I'm stoked to see that movie. That looks great.
But what it did open the door for, that it got me thinking about, because it says, meanwhile, in another universe, which I thought was clever. Yeah. As opposed to, meanwhile, on the other side of New York, you don't have to worry about, is this Venom world exactly connected? So having the universe thing is kind of a safe bet for Sony. Because in some ways, if Marvel one day was like, you know what, fuck it, let's bring Tom Hardy in.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
That's so.
We can do it now.
Oh, you could do a universe thing, yeah.
So many things through the side door, yeah.
And then redo the whole origin, right? Yeah. Well, so would there be, there's a Venom in that universe? Yeah.
I mean, you could theoretically do whatever. You could go, there's a different Venom universe where it's still Tom Hardy, but it's slightly different and slightly better.
Yeah.
And we're going to use that one for the MCU.
Yeah. It's definitely a safe move, for sure.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, overall, I had a lot of fun watching the movie. I wouldn't say it's by any means a great movie. There are times where I can't tell what is like bad intentionally or unintentionally bad. I feel like when Tom Hardy's not on screen, I thought it was kind of dull, but whenever Tom Hardy was on screen, and that's majority of the film, it was very entertaining. Overall, I'd say like lower the fuck out of your expectations and you might enjoy this movie. Yeah,
I absolutely agree with that 100% because I had the lowest and I came out really liking the movie. I'm actually probably gonna buy it, but just so I can drink to it.
Yeah. It would be a good drinking movie, yeah.
It is a fascinating movie because, I mean, this movie is just as much a mess in a lot of ways as everybody probably has prepared you for by now, but Tom Hardy just makes it so lovable and so enjoyable, and the fact that he is so much of the movie really does save the viewing experience. And like I said at the top, there are better bad comic book movies, but I would so rather watch this sooner than a lot of those.
It's not Sony's worst superhero movie by a long shot.
I would rank this right above Amazing Spider-Man 2 and right below Spider-Man 3. That's where I put it.
Me too. Yeah, that's
like I prefer this Venom a million times over Topher Grace's Venom.
Yeah.
100%. But in terms of the movie, I probably watched Spider-Man 3.
All in all, there are probably more quality moments in Spider-Man 3, but I think you would probably have more fun watching Venom movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's also a leaner movie too.
I agree.
It's fun and the audience clapped.
They did.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even just a couple people.
Yeah, and I would say the end credits themselves were pretty cool with the Eminem song.
Let the devil in.
But then they played the song by Run the Jewels, which I was like, this song's way cooler.
Right.
Eminem's my favorite artist. All right, guys, those are our thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way through, you guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation. Click that notification bell because subscribe button. You've heard every YouTuber say it. Follow Kyle on the Fan Theory YouTube channel. What do you do reactions to over there, Kyle?
We mostly watch content that already exists, like Buffy, Supernatural, and now Doctor Who. But we sometimes do trailer reactions, all kinds of fun stuff coming.
Good stuff there, and make sure to download and follow us on the Stardust app, people. Link in the description box. Venom!